had guests from other cities, and I was in a hotel with them. We were staying at hotel at the 10th floor. So it was even, like more scary than I expected because it was shaking too much and everyone was so panicked because we had no idea how long it will continue and we had to wait a little bit until going down. But I was that moment sure that it was able to collapse, that moment. It was that scary.
Shailendra, you were also in a hotel at the time, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's correct. I was there for basically a trip to a vessel, attend a vessel in Iskandar port, and I was in a hotel as well. Early morning, 4 o'clock. That was the first shock we had. To be honest, it was like first few seconds we didn't make out what is happening. We just fall deep asleep. And getting up from that moment, and then having no time to come out. When we realized now it's no longer safe to stay in, so we just rushed out. Lights were not there, so we used our mobiles to get some light and find the path. Everybody was scared. Everybody was, we were hearing people shouting, yelling, and crying. The moment we came out in the morning, we realized, oh God, it's raining, it's cold, and we had just come out in, just in nightwears. Again, weather also added and worsened the situation at that time.
Janan, what about you?
No, we were with PJs and we were barefoot and I got out and there were, people who were screaming and some people were crying. And when we got out, it was like 10 floors. So, it took a lot of time for us to get downstairs and we weren't sure like when it would stop. So it was more scary than when I got out. I found my car in the parking lot and I just got some people, whoever could fit in my car, and we waited outside for about 4 to 5 hours until we made sure that aftershocks, stop or get smaller.
All of this in the bitter cold, and I can appreciate how difficult and how upsetting it is to share these details. So thank you for taking the time to share and recollect those moments for us. Khalil, let me bring you into the conversation as well. You are a resident of Gaziantep. Are you able to take us back to the moment that the earthquake struck?
Yeah, it was a very terrifying moment. I was in my bedroom actually with my wife. We were still awake at that moment. We didn't sleep, and also the kids were awake because we were visiting my sister. And the first moments when it was shaking, I didn't believe that this is happening until my son jumped out of his bed and he was screaming. So I went to the bedroom where the kids are, to the kids' bedroom, and we hugged them. And we it was very confusing. It was long, as a colleague said, 1 minute and 40 seconds, and I just throw the kids under. We have a 2-floor bed for the kids. To throw them there until it's finished. Those almost 1.5 minutes were like 1.5 hours for us. And then, the moment it finished, we just grabbed whatever we could have, some blankets, get shoes for the kids. And I told them, don't panic, let's take what we can. And we ran to the car. And in the moment, my sister was calling me, screaming, because she lives alone with 7 girls, and her husband works in Saudi Arabia. And between my apartment and her apartment is 5 minutes by car, but it took me like 20 minutes because everyone was on the streets. My neighbors were down in the yard of the building. People are grabbing their kids. Women are crying. And it was snowy. The snow was already on the ground. So I drove to my sister's place. I had to even go against the road direction to take them. I'm lucky I have a summer house, farmhouse, which is about 20 minutes outside of Gaziantep, just near the airport. And the first thing I did, I put 12 people, like my sister and her 6 girls in the car, and my family with my wife and 3 kids were 12 people in the car, and I drove to the farmhouse. I have a big tent, kind of traditional tent. We said, okay, if the building is dangerous, we can stay in the tent. And at that moment, where it's like 5 a.m., everyone of Gaziantep city was on the streets. Everyone was on their vehicles. People are just running in the streets, trying to, get away from the buildings. So that's what I can tell about that moment specifically.
You all sound so grounded. You are explaining yourself so very well, considering all that you've gone through. You just explained there, Khalil, that you have a farmhouse that you managed to get to with your loved ones. Shailendra, what happened to you? Because you are from India originally. You're staying at this hotel. The earthquake happens. You come out in your pajamas without any of your belongings. You are thankfully home now in India. But what happened afterwards?
So that was something I will never forget actually. So once I went out, I didn't know where to go next. Language was a problem. Situation was an issue because everybody is here and there and chaos over there. So initially, when I had no other choice, I had to start asking people whether I can get a jacket from them so that at least I can start covering. I can protect myself with the winter. So fortunately, there were some local people who gave me some winter gear. So at least I got that. And then once things started settling and I had daylight and we could approach some local people there and they helped me out to reach out to my office in India where I could contact the people and ask them to help me out on that situation. The local people, they helped me out and they gave me shelter. They put fire near me so that I can keep myself warm. They gave me water. They gave me a little bit food. And then by the time 12 o'clock, there was another shock, and again there was an unrest. Outside, I could hear that buildings are collapsing, and there are a lot of noises occurring. People are shouting, but they did support me well. I am really obliged and thankful to them. There's something that you don't understand the words, but you do understand the emotions. So words were not there, but emotions were communicating.
Absolutely, and what I'm hearing from you is a great deal of humanity and compassion came your way. And Janan and Khalil, I know that both of you are now involved in that same mission as well, that mission to keep people as safe as they can, as healthy as possible as well, considering the bitterly cold temperatures, the lack of resources that you have. Can you both talk me through the situations now? Khalil, you are at your farmhouse, but it's no longer just the 12 of you there, as I understand it.
Indeed. I mean, the first day, in the morning, it became 10 families who came here. Friends of friends, friends of my brothers were calling us. Some people who just came to use the toilet or to charge their phone, because I was lucky. I have electricity here in the farm, and I have also my own borehole where the water was not an issue. And then even yesterday, we were 7 families staying here at a 2-floor small villa. I managed to install stoves. Wooden stoves that works on wood, because for me, this is a summer place. I don't come even in winter here. I didn't even prepare it for me, for my family. And usually I work with United Nations in Yemen. So most likely I come here once a month and I just barely visit. Solidarity is huge. Here I've seen it at my place. I've seen it in other places where people try to support each other, guide each other, offering help and support whatever they have. They share, preparing food, sharing whatever we can share. We managed to go back to the city the second day, getting more blankets, getting more stuff from my place. And my brother did the same, and also other friends did the same. But the situation, as the colleagues explained, it's devastating. People stranded in the streets, and you can see many of those situations, everywhere. People were in the parks, people went to mosques, trying just be in their vehicles in that cold weather, having the vehicles working all night, just trying to get some warmth. That's what we did in the second night. I slept in the car even the second night because my place inside was full with women and children. We left the space inside for women and children. All of us men, even me and my sister, we slept in the vehicle, trying to leave space for others.
Thank you for sharing that, Khalil. Janan, I know that you're also involved in supporting the community. Just to explain what you're up against on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, I mean, since this happened, we tried to communicate with our, friends, and today we started our kitchen. This is a restaurant, actually, a cafe restaurant, and we have been cooking, and today, so far, we could feed more than 2,500 people already.
You know what I'm hearing from both of you? Adrenaline, that you are just on the go, non-stop. All 3 of you have survived earthquakes. Jana and Khalil, have you been able to sleep at all?
I think all 3 days I could sleep for 2 hours probably, and that was the time I was just helping a little small children that she was so scared and crying, and she said she couldn't sleep, so I was just hugging her and I just made her sleep, and I could sleep by that time only. So but I just feel strong. I mean, I think the hope is keeping me awakened, and we still have a lot of stuff to do, so we have to be strong. And I think as the other gentleman mentioned, we are lucky ones.
That was Jana, Khalil and Shailendra in conversation with me a little earlier. And all of them told me towards the end of a longer conversation I had with them that they remain hopeful of finding more survivors, because as they put it, hope is all we have. And keep in mind, some people have been waiting for 2 days now for news of family and friends who are missing. And to give you a sense of a breakdown of those numbers, officials are quoting 8,574 deaths in Turkey and 2,660 deaths confirmed in Syria. Staying with numbers, looking at the weather forecast for Gaziantep for tonight, -6 expected there and -4 in Idlib in Syria. Do stay with us. A short bulletin is up next.
This is the BBC World Service, where Su Ping Chan is finding out about America's first black bank. Established in 1865, the Freedmen's Bank focused on helping African-American Civil War veterans protect their money.
To understand why the Freedmen's Bank is important, you have to understand what banking was like at the time. There weren't national banks. There was no Federal Reserve.
The promise was always the same: we will keep your money safe.
It was everywhere. Very few banks had branches outside of their local cities, so this institution was enormous.
But after 9 years, the bank failed, destroying the savings of thousands of families and leaving a legacy of distrust that's still felt 149 years later.
A lot of people felt defrauded by the government.
I'm glad my family was able to get some money back. People should have gone to jail for it.
America's first black bank. Tuesday at 9:30 and 20 GMT.
Hello, this is Krupa Bhatti live with BBC OS. We are almost 3 days into the crisis. More than 11,000 people in southern Turkey and northern Syria are now known to have been killed in those earthquakes. People are staying hopeful that more survivors can be found. After the news, I'll introduce you to 3 guests in the Turkish and Syrian diaspora who are waiting for news of their loved ones back home. Together with their community, they are pulling together.
BBC News with Moira Alderson. The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has hit back at mounting anger over his government's response to Monday's powerful earthquakes that are known to have killed more than 11,000 people. Speaking on a tour of the worst-hit areas, he said it was not possible to be prepared for a disaster this big. Rescue workers are continuing to search for survivors across southern Turkey and northern Syria. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has addressed British MPs, thanking the UK for its support, but asking to be supplied with powerful military aircraft. President Zelensky expressed gratitude for Britain's donation of Challenger tanks. The Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte says he's bitterly disappointed that an investigation has ended into the downing of an airliner over eastern Ukraine nearly 9 years ago. Nearly 300 people, most of them Dutch, were killed when a Russian-made missile struck flight MH17. Another journalist has been sent to prison in Belarus. Andrzej Poczobut was sentenced to 8 years in a penal colony. Sri Lanka's president says the country will be bankrupt for at least another 3 years because of an unprecedented economic crisis. He has pushed through hefty tax hikes, paving the way for an IMF bailout. The United Nations has warned there's a strong possibility of famine in Somalia from April. Weather forecasts indicate a 6th consecutive failed rainy season. It's been the country's longest and most severe drought in decades. The Ugandan government says it will now not renew a mandate for the UN's Human Rights Office in the country. The decision has been condemned by campaign groups and the opposition. Amnesty International says nearly 300 children in Thailand face jail for taking part in anti-government protests. It said children as young as 13 face charges such as sedition. That's the latest. BBC News.
Hello, I'm Krupa Bhatti. Good to have your company here on BBC OS. We are live here on the World Service. As we were hearing in our bulletin there, in Turkey and Syria, aid agencies are warning that time is running out to find survivors from Monday's earthquakes. We are almost 3 days into this crisis, with more than 11,000 people in southern Turkey and northern Syria now known to have been killed. Joining me now are three people who have family in the impacted areas by the earthquakes. Mustafa, he lives in Poland, but he grew up in Malatya, which is close to the epicenter in Turkey. Basil lives in the north of Germany, and his parents and sister are in Aleppo in Syria. And we are also hoping to connect to Meltem, who is here in the UK and has family in Hatay in Turkey. Thank you for joining us, Mustafa and Basil.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Mustafa, I'm going to start with you. I know you are in a very, very difficult situation right now. I understand you still have family members who have not been found.
Right. It's absolutely devastating. Thank you very much for giving a chance to speak at the moment. So, I was born and raised in one of those 10 cities hugely affected by the earthquake in Turkey. It's called Malatya, and it's a big city with more than 700,000 people. And so, as I'm watching the news, getting news from my family, and it's absolutely destroyed. There are no places left. My uncle, my aunt, and their families, they're relocating to other cities of Turkey, to Ankara, to Istanbul. And so my mom's uncle, and his wife, they're still on the rubbles, and no news from them. They're still searching for them at the moment, and no hope left. And other than that, at the moment, we are also hearing such news that the Turkish authorities just blocked Twitter and other social media accounts, saying they are fighting with misinformation. This is ridiculous, definitely, because Twitter has been very helpful for all those people trying to get help, organizing the support activities for the region. And at the same time, there's a coordination problem I heard going on, and people are outside living at the moment. It's freezing cold. My hometown is it's pretty cold in winter time.
I can hear, Mustafa, there's so much going on in your head right now, and I just want to pause you there so we can also bring in Basil into the conversation. But first of all, I know you say that you don't have hope for your great uncle and aunt, but I really hope that isn't the case, and I hope that your mum there is holding up okay as you do wait for news.
Mm-hmm.
Basil, let me bring you into the conversation. What is the situation with your family at the moment?
Hello. First of all, kindest regards and my prayer to Mustafa, and I hope you hear some good news soon, because I couldn't imagine the situation. As I mentioned before, it was like hell having to wait a few hours to get connected with the family. Basically, currently, I'm happy and I'm very, very grateful that the family is fine. It was a huge scare, but there are countless people who are just sleeping in parks, sleeping on the ground. The shelters are oversaturated, organizations are understaffed. People don't only need money, people need urgent help, like blankets, like clothes, like food. So it's kind of dramatic right now. Any kind of help would be a huge uplift in the situation. Absolutely.
Basil, just so I'm clear, your parents and sister, they are in Aleppo in Syria. Where are they right now? Are they safe? Are they warm? Are they getting the resources that they need?
Yeah, fortunately the home wasn't damaged. They had to, spend a lot of time, the last 2 days on the street, sleeping in the car, because there was still, after the initial earthquake, you have aftershocks, and but yeah, they're getting by right now, so everything is fine. I'm gonna say about the family, but there are people who aren't being able to get by. There are families who are sleeping on the street without clothes, without blankets. Sometimes the problem is the help, with the situation in Syria, the help is getting to one part, but the other part is not getting the help because of sanctions and so on. So this is a huge problem because it's a humanitarian situation, not a political one. And everyone needs help in the region.
Yeah. Mustafa, your family members, I mean, I know that you are waiting for news of your great uncle, but the ones that are there in Malaysia, can you just explain what their situation is right now?
Yeah, so they're not in Malta now, but like thankfully, I don't know, by chance, they were visiting my sister in Istanbul, so they were not there. But but all the rest of my family, my aunts, my uncles, our neighbors, all relatives, they're all in Malatya. This is our city, and so at the moment, we don't even know if our home is still there or not. Actually, because I was trying to take a look at the news and or the social media posts if there's any footage I could find from our district, but the only things I could see was wreckage, like destroyed flats, houses.
Mustafa, how do you deal with that uncertainty? You are overseas and you are watching this from afar. This is your hometown. How are you managing that uncertainty?
It's shocking. Those streets that I spent my childhood, like all the places. Whenever I go to Turkey, I visit the restaurants. I go for I mean, food. You know, they're all gone from, and seeing that from on TV and social media, it's devastating. It's shocking. Still, like I cannot understand. I don't understand like how it could happen. And we still don't know like what is going to happen next. And everybody leaving this town, and it's just like it's going to take maybe even more than decades to rebuild this city.
And you, of course, grew up there, and this was a place that is in many ways familiar with the risk of earthquakes.
It is, yeah. Unfortunately, it is, and I mean, I had many earthquakes, and I've been in the places like this little ones, you know, the 3.4 magnitudes we had before, but this huge, this big, never happened. I don't remember, and this actually destroyed everything, I can say. And I know they were warning, and they were warning people to check their houses and be prepared for it. They were warning all these the companies, construction companies, to be careful about that and give certificates for such situations. But apparently they were not reliable, because I see that on the news. Even some buildings built 2 or 3 years ago, new buildings, they're destroyed now. They're wrecked down.
Yeah.
I don't know how it could happen.
There's been a great deal of concern about building standards and the amount of support that has come to the region from the national government, and that debate, of course, continues with President Erdogan reassuring that it is under control, but a lot of people, of course, not in agreement with that. Basil, you are in the north of Germany.
Yeah.
Germany has one of the biggest Turkish diasporas, at least. I know that your family are of Syrian origin, but I wonder how the community there is coming together to support each other, to support people back home.
Yeah, actually the response that we've seen so far, it has been amazing. Like, you have people who got kind of divided by the last war that happened, and now you see them all working together to the same goal. They forgot about the differences. Everyone just focusing on one thing. A lot of donation campaigns happening. Everyone is trying to organize something. Everyone who owns any kind of home in Aleppo or any other city in Syria, they're just saying, hey, we have homes, we have for example, old buildings you can just go in and sleep there. It was a very, positive response that I've seen so far. It's been good to see finally.
That is reassuring. And Mustafa, a similar question to you, because there is quite a big Turkish community where I live here in London, and this morning at the school gates when I was dropping off my children, some of them were tearful and felt so helpless. And I wonder what it's been like for you, being so far away. You're in Poland. I don't know the extent of the Turkish diaspora there, but have you felt that you've had the support that you need?
I believe it's all we feel at the moment. We're shocked, and what I can say is there's a solidarity. So that the Turkish community and the Turkish embassies and consulates in various cities in Europe, they're leading it, thankfully, and they have opened many channels to encourage people to donate money. And so also the company I work for, it's a British. I work for a British company, and many people were asking about how they can help, and they also did a good amount of donations. So what I can say is I'm very thankful for the all the messages I receive and also like the solidarity. But at the moment, I think the most important is at the moment what is important is keeping the information line up and running, and also like not exactly sending money, but like the food and hygiene products to this region. This is important. People are the blankets needed, and so instead of like working on the coordination of this stuff, when I see on the news that the Turkish authorities some kind of like blocking social media or prioritizing someone else than helping people, it's also shocking and devastating. It should not be as Basil said, it's a humanitarian crisis. It's not a political crisis, and we should be treating it as in a different way.
We've just had an update on that news about Twitter access being restricted in Turkey. That's over on our live page. It has been restricted. That is according to the internet monitoring service NetBlocks, who track connectivity across the globe. They tweeted earlier this afternoon, I've just lost that page, that real-time network data showed a restriction of the social media site across numerous major internet providers. I wonder, to both of you, what difference do you think this is now going to make to the relief efforts, at least from outside? I know that people have been relying on it for information, but also for humanitarian resources. What is the alternative now? What will people do, Basil?
Regarding this topic in my country, I'm not sure how is it with social media, but I've seen it has been active so far. But there has been also some kind of disadvantage for social media in the last few days. I've seen too, people have been trying to spread false information. There are thieves who are trying to spread false information to try to, rob homes during these times. If there is a trusted source from the authorities that can organize all the information, where should the people go, where they can get their help, and where the money should come from, or where should it go to, then I think it's not going to be a huge difference. But if there is no organized source that can give all the information and no social media at all at the same time, then it can be a little bit catastrophic.
Mustafa?
I 100% agree. And on the other side, I'm just looking at the social media and accounts. Like not much coming at the moment, but I'm looking at the YouTube channels, like some individuals doing live, let's say, broadcasting from the region. It's absolutely a huge crisis at the moment. And what can be done at the moment is to be with them, holding their hands, and telling them that it is going to be okay. This is what they need at the moment. And yesterday, when I was watching last night, when I was watching one of the footages, that people are waiting for water even in some regions, that they could not transport water to some places, and kids are asking like for food. This is unbelievable. This is 21st century, and seeing such stuff, it is making me shocked.
Yeah. Please do, Basil.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, right now we're entering the third day, and the human body can stand like up to 3, maximum 4 days without water before the organs and the kidneys start to shut down and the person enters in a shock. And so this is very important that, like, every party that's trying to help to move as fast as possible. And as Mustafa said, this is super important. Money is important, yes, but now people need food, blankets, clothes, the essentials now. People need the essentials.
With regards to Syria specifically, Basil, and the conflict of who is in control of which part of the impacted areas, I'm wondering where you stand on that. What, in your opinion, would be the most effective means of getting the humanitarian aid to those people in need?
To be honest, like, I think like one of the biggest obstacles that's facing the reach of the help to these areas is also to the sanctions. Like, there has been a screenshot of the how do you call it, the flights around the countries around Syria, and you see planes flying all around Syria, but to Syria there are barely any planes that go into that direction. And I think momentarily at least, like, we need to, as I said, these sanctions need to be removed just to let the help to go through, because it's making everything super hard. Until now, there are people still under the rocks, and God knows if they're still alive or not.
I do want to bring in Meltem now for the last few minutes of this conversation. She is here in the UK but has family in Hatay in Turkey. Thank you for your time, Meltem. It's been a very, very difficult few days for you, as I understand it. Tell us what's happened with your family back home.
Hello. So my dad's side of the family live in Hatay, and they were pretty much all under the rubble, I could say. But today I got some good news, and almost all of them have been saved. We're just waiting on some cousins now. Not sure if we'll receive much positive news from them because their building's completely, it's just in pieces. But everybody out there is working so hard.
Mixed emotions for you, Melton, for your relatives. Some of them, most of them have been saved, and you've been waiting a number of days. That must have been an excruciating time for you.
Of course, obviously. I mean, we live for our family, so obviously we're very, very worried about them. But yeah, my dad, my grandparents, my aunts, they've all been saved, which is amazing. And what's really nice as well is just knowing that everyone's working hand in hand to get everyone out. And it's at times like this that you just really see the power of, our people, the government, the volunteers, everybody is just is there, hands and knees, trying to get people out. I mean, even the community in England, they're just, whatever they've got at home, they're packing them. And we were out last night trying to get things into lorries sent to Turkey as well. And everybody is just doing their utmost best. And it's at times like this that you just really see the power of kindness and just how much everyone cares about the community. Exactly.
Meltem, I do want to ask you, when you did manage to speak to your father and your grandparents, it's just fantastic news that they have been found safely. What was that first conversation like? What did you share? What did you say to one another?
So if I'm honest, I'm not able to contact them directly because the phone lines are down and everybody's trying to save as much charge on their phones as possible. So I'm just, and also I think WhatsApp, they're not able to use WhatsApp as well. So I'm actually getting in contact with them through somebody that lives in Turkey, so which is that, and that's even harder. But I know that they're safe. I know that they are healthy. I know that they are warm and they have food, and that's the most important thing to me, really. And the thing is, obviously, my dad's been saved, but he's now trying to help other people that are still under the rubble. And it's just such a devastating time. I'm sitting here thinking I want to go out there and help myself because you just feel so helpless sitting here, it's just such a difficult time, I think.
Meltem, really, just so I'm clear, your father has just been found under the rubble. He's found safely.
Yes.
And he is now himself trying to get other people out.
Yes. Yes. And that's the beauty of our people, is what I'm saying. Their building in the first earthquake was it didn't go down. It was just kind of like it was damaged. And then he went into the building of my grandparents to get them out. And in the second earthquake is when their building went down. And so in the process of trying to save my grandparents, he ended up in the rubble with them. But so now that they are saved, obviously we're all in relief, but it's like, it looks like a war zone out there. It's awful, and everybody just wants to help everybody. I think you can't sit and think, oh, I was in the rubble and I'm just going to sit here and watch everybody struggle. As long as your arms and your legs are working and you're healthy, everyone's trying to help. I think that you can't not.
Can I ask, where are your where's your father and your grandparents? Where are they staying right now?
So at the moment, there's tents and things that they're staying in. My grandma, who was extremely cold, and she was also she was in there the longest, so she needed. I think it was like she was quite thirsty and things, and she had lost a lot of energy. So they sent her to hospital, and she's now much better.
I'm so glad
I've
to hear
received
that.
a photo.
How old is your grandma?
She's gosh, I should know this, really. She's in her late 70s.
And how long was she under the rubble?
So we found out that she was out by this morning. So how long does that make it?
Let's
2
do the
days?
maths, but yeah, a couple of days.
Yeah.
But goodness, I mean, that's a tremendous story, and your heroic father going in to save his parents, it's a tremendous story, and I do wish them all the best.
Yeah.
In terms of your efforts here, have you managed to sleep at all?
Not really, no. We haven't. We've not been home that long, to be honest. We're trying to help as much as we can. We've got a newborn baby as well, so we just drop our baby off to my husband's family looks after her, and we're just out trying to get as much as we can. Their babies' nappies, tents, water bottle, everything that they may need is going that way, and we're trying to get as many people to make donations to actual Turkish charities as well. But like some are trying to make donations to all these new charities. I urge that that people don't do that. Just the main it's called Ahbab, AHBAB. That and I think there was another one, but I'll just stick to that one.
I mean, there are so many
organisations
trying to pull together, and listen, I wish you all the very best, Melton, with your efforts. I wish your family back home all the very best as they recover and heal from what has been such a traumatic few days. And thank you for joining us and taking the time to spend some time with us here on BBC OS. Thank you, Melton. And our thanks also to Basil and Mustafa, wishing them and their families all the best as well. So from the situation in very specific parts of Turkey and the situation in Aleppo, let's get a broader view on what is happening in northern Syria. My colleague Lina Shaikuni, who is of Syrian origin, has been hearing stories from people who have been caught up in the earthquakes there. Thanks for joining us, Lina.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I mean, devastation is still ongoing. The news is horrible coming in from the northwest, especially from opposition-held areas. It's now been over 60 hours. And rescue workers are still trying to get people from under rubble. People are using rescue teams are using really primitive and non-advanced equipment because they don't have access. There are people in camps that are coming in and helping in getting people out. Someone explained to me that the situation is just complete and utter chaos. Our family members that don't know where their other relatives are, whether they live, whether they're not. I've been speaking to doctors who just described to me the tragedy they've been seeing, and especially with treating children. Some of them completely orphaned, and it's just a very devastating situation.
And what do you understand will happen to these children? Because there have been so many videos of young children being brought out of the rubble. We don't know what has happened to their families. How do you understand the situation with these young children? Where are they being taken?
Well, what I understand from one of the people helping with the rescue effort, he's saying that it's really difficult right now to figure out where these families are and who these children are, where their parents are. So they hold them in either the hospitals or in places where they're congregating, but it's just a chaotic situation and they're just unable to figure out what to do at this point.
Yeah, I know that you are of Syrian origin yourself. It must be difficult to report on this when you are looking at your country of origin.
Absolutely, it's completely heartbreaking. I mean, even in government-held areas, you have over 1,200 deaths so far. The city of Aleppo is in a devastating situation, especially in areas where the poor live. It's just, and then in Latakia, the province of Latakia in the west as well, it's just hard. I'm from Aleppo, and so to hear the news coming in from families there, people are still trapped under rubble, even in government-held areas, and it's just people people are just devastated. There are schools that have been run down. This is a country that's been facing over 11 years of conflict, and people are tired, and they just feel like, someone from Latakia told me yesterday, it's like a big wound that has, that was just starting to heal a bit, and now it's just been reopened for everyone in the country. And us, reporting, even when you're in London, reporting on this, it just brings you back to the worst days of the war, and you just feel utter helplessness, and just the tragedy is unfathomable.
In your opinion, Lena, do you think the true extent of what is happening in Syria at the moment when it comes to these earthquakes is being reported? Are we able to tell the full story?
I mean, we're trying hard. There are, citizen journalists, especially in opposition areas, trying to say as much as possible. There are people in government-held areas that are trying to communicate over social media and share as much information as possible. Obviously, us as journalists, we have such a big responsibility in verifying news. There will always be opportunities for, false information to spread during these times. The scale is just horrendous, and as I monitor different outlets, you see horrific reporting, and you can see people on the ground really trying to reflect. But with the internet down as well and power cuts, it's really hard for communications to stay accurate all the time.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Lena Shaikuni, for coming on to BBC OS. Once again, we did speak to you yesterday, and we will keep checking in on the situation with you in northern Syria. Our colleagues on the ground in Turkey and from BBC Turkish are doing the same with the situation in southern Turkey. And there's plenty more on our live page as well. Thank you for spending some of your day with us here on OS. A bulletin is up next.
This is the BBC World Service, and on the food chain this week,
penne, fusilli, macaroni, agnolotti, tagliatelle, spaghetti. There are hundreds of pasta shapes in existence and some very strong opinions about their relative strengths and weaknesses. I'm Ruth Alexander, and I want to know what is the best pasta shape and why.
The food chain, Thursday at 4:30 and 11:30 GMT. In 60 Minutes, Outlook with Asia Fuchs.
Natasha Lansrogov was a journalist covering the collapse of the Soviet Union until the Muppets came calling, and she was tasked with bringing Sesame Street to Moscow. Along the way, she'd face mobsters with shark tanks and the kidnapping of Elmo.
This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
Welcome to OS. I'm Krupa Bhaji. We are live from London. It's